It's story time. As always, I'm going to give the disclaimer. My team has gone over these stories, but this is going to be my raw reaction. I've not read a single one of them. So let's jump in. The theme of these stories is tough decisions and life changing moments. Let's read the titles. I left my wife after finding out about her incurable disease. My husband woke up from a coma and didn't remember me. I went to jail for a crime my brother committed. I donated a kidney to my boyfriend and he left me after 3 years. I wanted to be the main wife. I left my wife after finding out about her incurable disease. I don't have a defense for what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. But every day I wake up in this car and I wonder if there's a version of me in another life who did the right thing. A version who stayed. A version who was strong enough to be the man that my wife needed. I met her overseas. She was beautiful in a way that made people stop mid-conversation. But more than that, she was kind. She made me feel like I was enough, like life could be good if I was standing next to her. And for a while, it was. I used to take her places, weekend getaways, fancy restaurants, spontaneous trips, just because I wanted to see her smile. I bought her little gifts, not because she asked, but because I loved how she looked at me when she got them. Long story short, money started to dry up. I made a couple of stupid investments, which at the time didn't seem stupid, but crypto can be a dangerous game. The trip stopped, the gift stopped, the stress of barely keeping the lights on turned us into people we didn't recognize. She told me she didn't care about the money, that she loved me regardless, but I didn't believe her. Maybe it was my pride, maybe it was my own insecurity. But every day, I waited for her to wake up and realize she could do better. And then, right when we thought we'd hit rock bottom, she got sick. At first, it was small things, headaches that lasted for days, pain in her stomach that would come and go. We brushed it off, stress maybe, poor diet, until one day, she couldn't get out of bed. When I came home from work, I barely recognized her. She looked like a zombie. I was terrified, but we hesitated to go to the hospital because we both knew we couldn't afford it. Eventually, we went. We sat there for hours, waiting for answers. When the doctor finally came in, I could tell before he even spoke. You know how people talk to you like they're trying to prepare you for something awful? Soft words, careful voice, something incurable, something life-changing, something that meant our lives, my life, would never be the same. I wish I could say my first thought was about her and how I'd be by her side no matter what, but all I could think about was me. Would I be taking care of her for the rest of her life? Could I handle watching her get worse? We could barely afford rent. How am I supposed to afford a full-time nurse? I told myself I'd figure it out. I'd be there for her. I'd fight for her. And for 4 months, I did. I woke up every day and I took care of her. I held her when she cried. I cooked meals that she was too nauseous to eat. I pretended to be strong, but inside I felt like I was suffocating. And then one day I cracked. I told myself she deserved better. Someone who could actually take care of her. Someone stronger than me. And that's when I made what I considered the worst decision anyone could ever make in this life. I called her aunt in her home country and lied. I told her that we had been informed that my wife only had about 2 weeks left. If she wanted to say goodbye, she needed to get here now. I used what little money I had left to buy her a plane ticket. I told one of my good friends that I was in financial distress and needed that favor. I asked him for $30K and he gave it to me without thinking twice. I left a note where her medicines were to let them know where the money was. I packed a bag the night before her aunt planned to land, and the night I picked her up from the airport and dropped her off at the house, I left. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And now I sleep in my car, I shower at gas stations, I take whatever part-time work I can just to survive. I tell myself this is my punishment, that this is what I deserve. There are times I want to go back and see if we could forget it happened and try again. That's if she's even still alive. I wish I could say I left because I wanted her to have a better life, but the truth is I was scared, I was selfish, I was a coward, and no matter how far I drive, no matter how many nights I tell myself to just forget, I know there's a woman out there, my wife, who woke up one morning and realized I was never coming back, and that's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. That's hard. I'm so sorry that happened to you guys. I don't think that you're the worst person in the world. I think it was definitely a terrible decision and something that you did when you were afraid. But, and she may not forgive you, but I think you should definitely go back. My husband woke up from a coma and didn't remember me. I always thought the worst thing that could happen in a marriage was losing your spouse, but I was wrong. The worst thing isn't losing them. It's having them right in front of you and realizing they're already gone. My husband and I have been together for 10 years, married for 6. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was real. We built a life together. Inside jokes, late night talks, lazy Sunday mornings, all the little moments made us us. And then, one night in the blink of an eye, it was all taken away. It was a car accident. I got the call at 2:14 a.m. I remember staring at the phone, half asleep, thinking it was him calling to say he was on his way home. But it wasn't him. It was the hospital. When I got there, I was met with words I barely understood. Traumatic brain injury, swelling, medically induced coma. The doctor's mouth kept moving, but I couldn't process a thing. All I knew was that my husband was hooked up to machines and there was nothing I could do but wait. And so I did. For 6 months, I sat by his side. I talked to him. I held his hand. I read his favorite books out loud. I told him over and over again how much I loved him, how much I needed him to come back to me. And eventually he woke up. And it had to have been one of the greatest days of my life. Shortly after, it was one of the worst days of my life. He wasn't him anymore. When Elijah finally opened his eyes, I sobbed with relief. I kissed his hands, his forehead, whispering, "Baby, I'm here. I never left." But then I saw the confusion in his eyes. He looked past me, then around the room like he was searching for something, someone. And then he said it. "Who are you?" I felt my heart stop. I let out a shaky laugh, assuming he was just groggy, disoriented, very funny. I said, "It's me, baby. It's your wife." His brows furrowed. He pulled his hands away. I don't know you." I tried to stay calm. The doctors had warned me about memory loss, but I told myself it would be temporary, that it would come back in pieces. But weeks passed, then months, and still I was a stranger to him. I showed him photos, our wedding, our home, our vacations, nothing. I told him our love story. The way he proposed, the way we danced in the kitchen, the way he used to call me his forever, nothing. He was polite, kind even, but he looked at me the way you look at someone you just met. And then one day he asked the question that shattered me completely. Was I in love with you? I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. I forced a smile, even as my vision blurred with tears. "Yes," I whispered, "so much." He stared at me for a long time, and then softly he asked, "Then why don't I feel it?" I didn't have an answer, because the truth was, I felt it enough for the both of us. But love doesn't work like that. You can't force someone to remember. You can't make them feel something that's no longer there. So I braced myself for the inevitable. I prepared for the moment he'd ask for a divorce. I practiced what I'd say, how I'd keep it together. I reminded myself over and over again that if he wanted to leave, I'd let him. But that moment never came because Elijah stayed. 7 months have passed since he woke up. 7 months of him looking at me like a stranger. 7 months of trying to rebuild a love story he doesn't remember. But something is shifting. It's in the little things. The way he lingers in the doorway when I'm cooking. The way he asks me questions about our life before. The way his fingers graze mine just a little longer than before. And then there are the nights. At first, we slept in separate rooms. It was just too much, too soon. But last week, he asked if he could stay. Just until I fall asleep, he said. He never left. He hasn't told me he loves me, not yet. But the way he looks at me now, there's something there. Curiosity, maybe even hope. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he'll ever love me the way he once did. But for now, he's still here, and that's enough. Yeah, that's tough. I don't know what I'd do if my husband ever didn't remember me. I went to jail for a crime my brother committed. My brother couldn't ever think, okay? Well, let me read the story first. Maybe. They say you got to protect your family, but what happens when protecting them ruins your whole life? I ask myself that question every day. The saying goes, money is the root of all evil, and I'm sure our lives reflect that more than anyone else's. My little brother owed the wrong dude the wrong amount. Thought he had time, thought he could finesse his way out of it like he always did, but that night, his luck ran out. They were arguing, heated, words got thrown, then hands, and before he even knew what happened, he did something you can't take back. I won't lie. My little brother wasn't a saint, but he wasn't built for this. He'd heard about the streets, but he wasn't from them. So when it happened, he panicked, called me, voice shaking so bad I could barely understand him. "Bro, I messed up bad." I was already throwing on my clothes. By the time I got there, he was pacing, dang near hyperventilating. And when I saw what he did, my stomach dropped. Baby, I'm throwing up at that point, okay? I don't know if I could see it. It was bad, real bad. And the worst part was he just had a son maybe a month before this happened. So all that is running through my head, and I'm sure it's running through his too. I went into protect mode. I told him to leave, to go home to his girl, act normal, don't say nothing to nobody. Then I did what I had to do. I started cleaning up, tried to move things around, make it look like an accident, thought I had time, but I didn't. Cops kicked in the door while I still had blood on my hands. They didn't ask no questions, didn't care why I was there. They just saw what they saw and took me down. And just like that, my life was over. At first, I thought he would step up, thought he'd tell the truth, thought I'd be out in a few months, maybe a year tops. But time kept passing by. And my little brother, he was out there living. He got a job, started taking care of his girl, his kid, got out the streets, straightened up. Meanwhile, I was still here locked up. That hurt my heart a little bit, okay? I think what hurts the most is how much time it took him to come see me. Yeah. Because when he came to visit, it had been months. He looked good, new clothes, fresh cut, like life was treating him real nice. Me, I'm sitting across from him in a jumpsuit feeling like a fool. I thought I could handle everything in here, but I was starting to fold. I leaned in. Jay, you gotta tell them the truth, man. I can't keep doing this. He looked down at the table, took a deep breath. I can't, bro. I just stared at him. You can't. He shook his head. My son needs me. I wanted to reach across that table and beat his behind. Okay? Your son needs you. What about me? 2 years after that visit, I heard something that made me sick. He got caught up again. Oh, heck no. Word got back to me that he'd been moving reckless, thinking he was untouchable. Somebody came for him, and instead of walking away, he did the exact same thing that got me in here in the first place. Only this time, he didn't have me to save him. He got locked up, and now we both behind bars. Looking back, I should have let him take the fall the first time. I thought I was saving him, thought I was giving him a chance, but all I did was delay the inevitable. I can't imagine the pain my mom is in, because deep down, she knows I didn't do it. But what can she do? Ain't no proof. Ain't nobody listening. I'm sick because I left her and my sister out there to protect themselves. And I'm angry with him because he left everyone out there to protect themselves because he felt like he had a point to prove. I just sit here, thinking, regretting, wishing I could go back. Because the truth is, my brother was always going to end up here. And I threw my life away trying to stop it. There's a note. I'm going to read that first. Okay. I'm the sister to both brothers. I had my brother write it from his perspective. I watched the podcast, and when I saw you were doing story times, I asked him to write about it. Thank you for your platform. Every day I'm sick about losing them. The middle brother who committed both acts really isn't a bad guy. For whatever reason, he always felt like he had something to prove, and I miss my older brother so much. Seeing him in those colors always does something to me. I'm sorry for your loss. I feel like the younger brother probably never confessed to it initially because he told him to go home. You know what I'm saying? Like, he said, like, you go, get out of here. I'm going to handle it. So when push came to shove, came to going to jail, he like, oh, you handled it for me, you know? But I do feel your brother because if I save you, don't go back out there and do stupid stuff just because you feel like justified or you feel like you get like a little prideful, right? Like, ain't nobody finna talk to me like that. Ain't nobody. Let them folks talk to you however they want to talk to you. If it's keeping you out of jail, like, it's not that serious. I donated a kidney to my boyfriend and he left me after 3 years. I didn't hesitate when he asked me. We'd been talking about marriage for months. He made it sound like it was right around the corner, and I believed him. Each date night, I thought, this is the night he's going to ask me to be his wife. It got so bad that I couldn't even enjoy our nights out. I was constantly waiting for the moment when he'd get down on one knee, and every time it didn't happen, I just shrugged it off. But when he told me he needed a kidney, I didn't think twice. It wasn't just about love. It was about commitment. It was about the future we were supposed to build. I wasn't going to let him lose his life. He was the person I was ready to spend forever with. So if this was what it took, then I'd do it. The surgery was hard. I went under the knife to give him part of me, literally. I spent weeks recovering, dealing with the pain, and trying to get back to normal while he was in the hospital, hooked up to machines and looking fragile as heck. But we made it through. He made it through, and I was there every step of the way. But over the next few months, things started to change. He was better physically, stronger even, but emotionally, I wasn't the priority anymore. I'd been there for him in ways most people would never imagine, and it felt like I didn't matter. He started being distant. He'd pick fights over the smallest things. He'd spend more time on his phone and less with me. The late nights started to happen more often, and I began to feel like a shadow in my own life. The same man who had told me how much he loved me, how grateful he was for my sacrifice, started treating me like I was just another person in his life. It didn't take long before I realized I wasn't the same priority anymore. I felt invisible. 3 years together, and I started seeing the cracks in the foundation. The late nights out with his boys, the "I'm just busy, we'll talk later" text. When I tried to talk about it, he'd shut down, get defensive. He became this stranger to me, someone who couldn't even look me in the eyes anymore. And then came the bombshell. One night, he sat me down, his eyes avoiding mine like he couldn't look me in the face, and he said it. "I've been seeing someone else for a while." He had the nerve to tell me it wasn't anything serious, but his actions spoke louder than his words. And when I asked why, after everything I did for you, he said, "You saved my life, and that's why I'm telling you. I didn't want to cheat on you. I didn't want you to go through that pain too, because we both know what that's like." Honestly, cheating would have hurt less. Maybe. I don't know. What I do know is that I felt crushed. I had given him a piece of me, literally, and he threw it away. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to scream, but I just sat there in shock. A few days later, he told me he was moving in with her. He said he'd pay the rent for the remainder of the year as a thank you, but after that, I'd have to figure it out. I don't even know how to put into words what that did to me. The idea of him just walking away like I meant nothing. I thought about so many ways to mess his life up, their life up. I wanted to get him back so bad. Everything I could think of kept landing me in jail sooner or later. And after calming down, I came to the conclusion that I'm not cut out for jail. But I'm thankful for my friends. They stayed by me during that whole mess. They were the ones who picked me up when I thought I couldn't get back on my feet. He even lost some of his friends because they couldn't understand how someone could do something like that to someone who had done so much for them. His dad, he checks on me sometimes, and honestly, it's been a relief. I'm not even close with my own parents, so I appreciate it more than I can say, but the truth is, it still hurts. It hurts that someone I thought I was building a future with could just walk away after everything. To this day, I still don't know how he could do it. It's been months, but I still think about it, and I don't know if I'll ever fully move on from it, but I'm learning. I'm learning to trust myself again. I'm learning not to let someone else's actions define me. And I just want to say this. If you're out there hurting because someone left you, don't let that stop you from living the rest of your life. You are so much more than that heartbreak. Find those friends who'll lift you up and turn to Jesus. He's been the biggest help for me throughout this whole thing. I found peace in places I never expected, and it's made all the difference. I hope my story makes it on the podcast, and if it helps even one person, then it was worth sharing. Yeah. I am so sorry that happened to you. Your worth is not in whether anybody else can see it or not. You are solely defined by God's love for you and Jesus' sacrifice for you on the cross. That's it. Okay? You are beautiful. You are loved. You're wonderful. I'm so glad that you have friends there to support you. I wanted to be the main wife. Whoa. Look, I've always known the game. I get it. Men come into my life. I play my part. They play theirs. And eventually, they fade away. It's just how things go. But this man was different. I knew he had a wife. You knew he had a wife? You wanted to be the main wife? Whoa. And yeah, I knew what that meant. but I do this all the time. I'm in the right places. I know where to be. I know what the signs are. Men find me attractive. They do a little tricking and I let them. And when it's time for them to bounce, I just move on to the next one. But this guy, nah, he wasn't like them. I kind of knew him because he's a professional athlete and I used to be with one of his teammates. So I'm guessing he told him about me. He knew I'd keep my mouth shut. In this economy, who can really afford to keep a 9 to 5, right? So I invested in my looks, and honestly, I wanted to see my investment pay off. And they were paying off. Random trips, he would send me money to make sure I was straight. And when we did plan to see each other, he would tell me what he wanted me to wear for dinner, like down to the T. Earrings, everything. He was really good friends with the owner of a restaurant, so we would always be able to sit in the back, separate entrances, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The only thing I wasn't feeling was his height. I like him tall, and he was a little shorter than I usually go for. But the dude was hilarious. He had me cooking for him, doing his laundry, all that wifey stuff. And I found myself ignoring calls from other men I'd usually drop everything for. Yeah, you was in your feelings. He's an NFL player, and there are rules we all follow. The wives, girlfriends, etc. However, I broke my own rule, which is never look into the wife. Don't look at what she dresses like, what she does for work, who her friends are. But the problem was I started seeing myself in his wife's shoes. And you know what? I started thinking about the C word, children. I can't even believe I'm admitting that, but that's where my head went. To the left. A little extra. Okay. One night, we were together, and his wife started blowing up his phone, asking where he was, and y'all, I got so mad. This ain't my first rodeo. I know better than to make a scene, but I couldn't help it. All I wanted to do was snatch the phone out his hand and ask her why she was yelling at my man. Your man? Okay. After that little situation, days went by, and I didn't hear from him, and I was going through it. That's when I knew he got to me. I was trying to be cool, but I was wrapped around his finger, and I'm trying not to be explicit because I know the nature of your podcast. I'm a fangirl, but he had me wrapped. I appreciate you. I love that you are a fangirl of the podcast. We love it, boo. Thank you. Thank you for watching. When we finally spoke again, I broke another rule. I asked the one question you're not supposed to ask. Why won't you leave her? I don't remember exactly what he said, but I do remember feeling so stupid. I could already tell from his answer that it wasn't the same for him as it was for me. It hurt. But it didn't change how I felt about him. I'm sorry, boo. He spent more time with her, but he would confide in me. But I still wasn't the main wife, and that wasn't good enough for me. So one night, after a few too many glasses of wine, I did something even stupider. I called his wife. I didn't cuss her out. I didn't even tell her who I was. I just listened. And what she said, that shattered every lie I told myself. She knew about me. She always knew, but she wasn't leaving. Okay. Because he was her husband, their kid's father, her investment. Okay, so your investment, your looks, her investment is her man. Fair. And no matter what I did, I would never come first. That conversation changed everything. It made me hate the position I put myself in. Then I called him and I gave him an ultimatum. It's me or her. And you know what he did? He laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not one of those I'm sorry laughs. No, he laughed like I was playing, like a real girl, please laugh. Then I hung up. He texted me, and I'm going to put word for word what he said. Look, I'm just being real with you because I really do care about you. I've got a future with her. When you and I run its course, that's just what it is. But I'm not leaving everything I've built to be with somebody who's already been with everybody. Dang. He said it like that. And that was the moment I realized I'd never been in control. I was just entertainment to him. I was done after that. I didn't block him, but I made it clear I wasn't going to mess with him again. But the messed up part is, if he called me right now, 9 times out of 10, I'd still go see him. But for real, it was a wake-up call. I don't mess with married men anymore. I can't do it. It tore me up. And I'm trying to be better about it, but it's hard because I got bills. So, yeah, pray for me. Definitely going to pray for you. And sis, you should definitely block him. Like, beyond him, beyond his wife, like, you deserve that. I don't condone messing with married men because I got one right there. And I don't play about him. Just in case I was wondering, like, I don't play about him. Okay. So definitely don't condone like those adulterous relationships, but personally, you deserve to block him because you deserve somebody who is going to love you for you, who's going to make you their person, who's not going to play about you specifically. And that might involve getting some different friends, hanging with a different crowd, getting you a 9 to 5, because you honestly deserve so much better. Yeah. Your worth is very specifically in who God has called you to be, not in the looks that you've invested in or anything of that nature. So I love you. I pray so much better for you, that you find your person, your people, that you have your beautiful children. And yeah. Anyway, guys, those are our stories for today. Make sure to like, subscribe, send them to your favorite people that you like to discuss these stories with. Comment which story was your favorite. What was your favorite part? What was the part like? I know you lying. You know, let me know. Like, we want to see it in the comments. Also, if you're enjoying these stories, submit your story. Okay, we've got tons of different categories, and if it falls into one of those categories, it will be added to those. We do still change the names in the stories because we don't want no slack. Okay, we don't want no repercussions. So there is full anonymity when you do these stories, when they're submitted. But I guess that's it, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.